Um, Diane Aleph. Coins which are found between the Shekalim chest and the native offering chest, if they are found closer to the Shekalim chest, they should fall to the Shekalim. If closer to the donative Shekalim, they fall to the donative offering chest. If equidistant from the two, they should fall to the donative offering. Coins which are found between wood and frankincense, if they are found closer to wood, they should fall to wood. Closer to frankincense, they should fall to frankincense. If equidistant from the two, they fall to frankincense. Coins which are found between nest and young pigeon burnt offerings, if they are found closer to nest, they should fall to nest. Close to the young pigeon burnt offerings, they should fall to the young pigeon burnt offerings. If equidistant, they should fall to the young pigeon burnt offerings. Coins which are found between non-consecrated funds and second tithe funds, if they are found closer to non-consecrated funds, they should fall to the non-consecrated funds. If closer to the second tithe funds, they fall to the second tithe funds. If equidistant from the two, they should fall to second tithe funds. This is the general rule. We decide according to proximity, even for leniency, but in the case of equidistance, we decide for stringency. Coins which are found before animal dealers in Yerushalayim are always assumed to be second tithe money. Coins found on the Temple Mount are assumed to be non-consecrated. Coins found elsewhere in Yerushalayim, if they are found during the pilgrimage festivals, they are assumed to be second tithe money, but during the rest of the year, they are assumed to be non-consecrated. If meat is found in the temple courtyard, livers are assumed to be burnt offerings, but slices are assumed to be sin offerings. If meat is found in Yerushalayim, it is assumed to be peace offerings. In either case, it must be left until it is unfit and then removed to the place of burning. If meat is found in the province, plims are assumed to be unslaughtered, and slices are permitted. At the time of the pilgrimage festival, when meat is plentiful, even limbs are permitted. Okay.
Okay. Mishna Dalet. Behema shenimtzeis miYerushalayim ba'ad Migdal Eder. What happens if an animal, a live animal, is found wandering between Jerusalem and Migdal Eder? Migdal Eder is actually around Bethlehem. It's mentioned in the Chumash around the time of Rachel's death. So that's we can guess that Migdal Eder is around Bethlehem, around Kever Rachel. Okay. And that radius in all directions. They are presumed to be animals that were designated for korbanot that got away. Okay, Zacharim, so if they're males, they are taken as olos and they're put on the mizbech. The kavos is shlamim, and if they're females, they are used for shlamim. Rabbi Yehuda Omer hara'oi lepsachim. He says furthermore, according to Regel Shloshim Yom, for 30 days before Pesach, any animal that could qualify as a korban pesach is assumed to be a korban pesach. However, the halacha doesn't follow Rabbi Yehuda. It just follows the male-female rule as mentioned before in the Mishnah. Okay. Now, Mishnah Hey. Here comes one that I have no idea why they thought this might be a good idea, but apparently didn't last long, as you might predict. So remember, we just said in the previous Mishnah that somebody finds an animal wandering around the environs of Jerusalem, says, "Hey, I found this animal over here," and they say, "Okay, wonderful. It's a male animal. It should be an ola. Well, thank you very much. Now, can you please pay for the nesachim?" And the guy says, "I just found this. I don't want to pay for the nesachim." And then they would take a security. They would seize a pledge from him to make sure that he would pay for the nesachim. And okay, see if you can guess what kind of behavior that incentivized. Just hazard a guess.
It was pretty upsetting. I mean, people were, behaviors that were arguing and fighting over this.
Well, what's going to happen when somebody sees an animal wandering around Jerusalem?
Nobody's going to take it.
Not my problem.
Right.
Not my problem. Forget it. Okay. Why? Okay. So I just can't think why anyone thought that was a good idea. So then, when people saw that this is what was happening, people would say, "Forget about it. I'm not touching this animal. They're gonna take my money. They're gonna punish me for returning it."
Right.
Okay. Is kino based in Sheyun Nesachea Ba'in Mishal Tzibor. So they said, okay, so when it gets brought, the money for the Nesachim that accompany it must come from the Tzibor.
Sure.
It basically comes from the Lishka, which is why, of course, we see it in Shekalim. We have a similar principle when it comes to Shavas Aveda, that if, for example, somebody finds a wallet and it's got 100 shekels in it. So guy's a good guy, wants to do a mitzvah, comes over to his friend and says, hey, I found your wallet. It's got 100 shekels in it. Here you are. And the guy says, thank you very much, but there was 200 shekels in this wallet.
I did that.
Where's the other 100? And he says, what are you talking about? There was only 100. Now, if you look at this in the eyes of Choshen Mishpat, what's this? This is a modeh b'mechtzas. The guy's returning says, no, it wasn't 200, it was 100. So he's effectively admitting that he owes 100, and the other one's claiming 200. He should be able to make him take a shavua. And then people are going to say, forget it. I'm not doing a Shavas Aveda if I'm going to have to take a shavua every time I'd want to do a Shavas Aveda. So the Beis Din said, forget it. This is one case of modeh b'miktzas where you're part of from a shavua. You're doing the guy a favor. Don't punish him for doing a favor. So the same thing goes for this case over here. You're doing a favor. You're doing a Shavas Aveda to the mikdash. You're not going to have to pay for the nesachim.
I can see that happening. Really see that happening here. Someone finds it. Oh, wait, it was 200 there. No, it wasn't 200. It was 100. And I could see it. Yeah. All right.
Okay, Mishnah Vav. Amar Rabbi Shimon Shiva Dvarim Hiskinu Beis Din. So there were seven things in this tchum. I mean, obviously there were more than 7 things that the Beis Din were mataken, but there were 7 things in this area that the Beis Din were mataken, and this is one of them. So that is of not charging the guy who's returning the animal to the mikdash. What else is there? Nochri sheshilach olaso mimedina sayan. Okay, so a non-Jew from Chutz La'aretz decided that he wanted to contribute an olah to the Beis Hamikdash. V'shilach ima nesachim, right? And he sends a nesachim along with it. Kirevin mishelo. That's wonderful. That's exactly lechatchila what he should do, and we accept it and we bring it on the mizbeach. V'imlav. What if he just sent the animal and didn't send the nesachim? We don't make a fuss about it. We just say, take it out of the tzibur. So that's case number 2. Similarly, if you have a ger, now what's the chiddush of a ger? Is that we're talking about a ger who is going to die without yorshim. You can't. When it comes to a Jew, there's no such matzav as a Jew who dies without yorshim. A Jew has always got yorshim, even if he doesn't have children. He's got a brother. If he doesn't have a brother, he's got a father. If he doesn't have a father, he's got cousins. All the way. Somewhere there's a yorish. But a ger is like a tinoch and all of these. He's like completely isolated, and he doesn't have any family members. So this ger, before he died, designated an animal as an olah, let's say. And then he dies, and he if he also left nesachim over in his will, then fine, it gets taken from his estate. We still bring it on the mizbeach, but the money for the nesachim again comes from the tzibur. So that's case number 3. Utanai based in hu al kohen gadol shemes. Now he has a 4th case, which is not directly related to this. It's a similar sort of case. The Kohen Gadol just excuse me. Just to remind you, the Kohen Gadol brings a daily sacrifice, which is particular to the Kohen Gadol, the minchas chavitin, right? Which he brings a 1/10 of an ephah of flour, which he brings half of it in the morning and half of it in the afternoon. Okay. Now, what happens if the Kohen Gadol brought his korban in the morning and then he died? He died during the morning. So somebody is going to have to bring the mincha in the afternoon. So now this is the Tanai based in that Rabbi Shimon is talking about. What happens in such a circumstance? This Kohen Gadol shemeis. So then the afternoon version of this thing, you can't bring his minchas chavitin that was left over from the morning, because that was from the Kohen Gadol who died. So that doesn't get brought in the afternoon. But there's still got to be a mincha that gets brought in the afternoon, and who's going to pay for it? He says that comes from the tzibur. So the tzibur will pay for another 10th of an ephah, and that'll be brought as a kohenless sacrifice, assuming that no new kohen gadol got appointed during in the interim. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Omer Mishal Yorshin. Rabbi Yehuda disagrees with Rabbi Shimon on this and says no, the kohen gadol's Yorshim have to provide the minchas chavitin of the afternoon. Okay. Ushleima haisa kreva, and he says furthermore, it was brought as a whole sacrifice. Now shleima meaning that remember we said it was an asirit ephah, a 10th of an ephah of that gets the kohen in the regular case. The kohen brings half of it in the morning and half of it in the afternoon. So in other words, a 20th in the morning and a 20th in the afternoon. Okay, so Rabbi Yehuda says furthermore, the one that gets brought in the afternoon, the whole thing gets brought, not a half. The full isaron. Okay.
They don't bring that. They don't bring the other half. They bring the whole thing.
They bring the whole thing in the afternoon.
I remember the whole thing. What's left?
And they say never mind that. It's he says, I'm just looking at Kahati on this. He says that it means an isaron, a full isaron in the morning and full isaron in the evening. He says whether but this is a point of agreement between Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon whether it, in other words, whether it comes from the tzibur or even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who said that it comes from the Yorshim, it gets brought a full isaron both morning and evening. Now, why is that? It gives us the svar over there. I'm just looking for the reason why it gets brought the whole thing. Yours must be itself.
Doesn't say.
Basically, they've got some limudim from Sukkim that they say that if it's not the kohen gadol himself bringing it, that they bring the entire asiris, entire isaron in the afternoon and in the afternoon, morning and afternoon.
Says when public funds are used, the entire meal offering is brought as a unit.
Yeah.
Menachos and Rambam, Midim or Musafin.
Okay. All right. Yes.
It says here though that both Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon agree with this ruling. They differ regarding the scriptural derivation.
Right.
Okay.
Right. I've got the same notes in my
notes. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do the Chazara.
Okay. We have a Dalet Aleph. What did they do with the Truma? With it, they would purchase daily offerings, additional offerings, and then the Sacham, the Omer, the 2 loaves, the pan of bread, and all of the public offerings. Those who would watch over the aftergrowth of the Shemitah year received their wages from funds withdrawn from the treasury chamber. Yoshi says, also one wishing to may volunteer as an unsalaried watchman. They replied to him, you too admit that they must come from public assets. Then that's a sneaking. Okay, sneaking. The red cow, the large he-goat, which is sent to Aziel, and the strip of red wool are purchased with funds withdrawn from the treasury chamber. The ram for the transport of the red cow, the ram for the transport of the he-goat, which is sent to Aziel, and the strip of wool, which is tied between its horns, and the water canal, the walls of the city and its towers, and all the needs of the city are funded from the remainder of the treasury chamber. Al-Shol says the Kohanim Gadolim built the ramp for the transport of the red cow for their own funds. What did they do with the surplus of the remainder of the treasury chamber? With it, they would purchase wines, oils, and fine flour, which they would subsequently resell the profits according to the accruing to the Torah temple. These are the words of Rebbe Shmuel. And Rebbe Kiva says investments may not be made with that which belongs to the temple, nor with funds collected for the poor. Right. Nowadays, we don't think of, I mean, there must be a reason they purchased some of these items, like the red string. How much could that have cost? You know, this.
Yeah. I mean, now they hand out red strings for free at the Kotel.
Pesachim. Gimel Aleph. These must be removed on Pesach, Babylonian kutzik, Median beer, Idumean vinegar, Egyptian sesame, dyer's broth, cook's dough, and scribe's paste. Reb Elia says also women's cosmetics. This is the general rule. Whatever is of a species of grain must be removed on Pesach, and they are in the category of a prohibition, but they are not subject to charas. When dough remains in the grooves of a kneading trough, if there is as much as an olive volume in one place, it must remove it. But if not, it is null because of its insignificance. And likewise, regarding the laws of contamination, if he objects to it, he interposes. But if he desires it to remain, then it is out of the trough. Regarding deaf dough, if there is dough similar to that has already been leavened, it is forbidden. How do we separate challah from contaminated dough on the festival? If Eliezer says she should not designate it with a name challah until it is baked. Yehuda ben Zara says, let it be cast into cold water. And Rabbi Yeshua says, this is not the leaven concerning which we are warned. It shall not be seen and it shall not be found, but it separates it and leaves it until the morning, and it leavens. And if it leavens, it leavens.
Right, you see, Rabbi Yeshua is saying that the challah doesn't belong to him; it belongs to a kohen, and you only have a concern of bal yara, bal yumatzel on your own chametz. That's not yours. Who cares? But the halacha does follow Rabbi Eliezer here that you just bake it and then separate the challah afterwards.
Okay. How Bikurim, how is it like an domesticated animal? Its blood must be covered like the blood of an undomesticated animal, and it may not be slaughtered on festival days. But if he did slaughter it, its blood is not covered. Its chaylev conveys carrying uncleanliness like an undomesticated animal, and its uncleanliness is in doubt, and one may not redeem it with its firstborn. Okay, we're talking about a koi over here.
Yeah, koi.
How is it like cattle? Its chalev is forbidden like the chalev of cattle, and one is not liable to charas for it. But it may not be brought with Ma'aser Sheni money to be eaten in Yerushalayim, and it is subject to the shoulder, the two cheeks, and the maw. The Reb Eliezer exempts for the proof of the burden of proof lies in the claimant.
And so why can't you buy it with Ma'aser Sheni money in Yerushalayim? Because with Ma'aser Sheni money, you're supposed to buy meat that goes on the mizbeach. The koi can't go on the mizbeach. Or well, if it were definitely a behemoth, it could go on the mizbeach. But so because you're left in this sort of suffix position, you're not allowed to bring to use. Yeah.
How is it neither like a koi or not like cattle? It is forbidden on account of kalayim with both an undomesticated animal and with cattle. If one assigns to his son his undomesticated animal, and with cattle, if one assigns to his son his undomesticated animals and his cattle, he has not assigned to him his koi. If he said, I am a Nazarite, and if this is be an undomesticated animal or cattle, it is a Nazarite. In all other ways, it is like an undomesticated animal and cattle and separate and requires slaughtering like this and like that, and conveys carrying cleanliness as a limb of a living being like this and like that.
Okay.
Right.
Okay, today we begin Tivolium.
Okay. All right here. Excuse me, Aleph. If one, that's right. If one gathered portions of challah with the intention of separating them later, and they clung together, Beit Shammai says it is considered a connection in regard to its table yom. But Beis Hillel says it is not considered a connection. A slice of dough that clings to one another, or loaves that cling to one another, if one baked a flat cake on top of another flat cake, and they became stuck together before they have formed a crust in the oven, froth of water that is hollow, the first froth of split beans, porridge, and the froth of new wine. Rabbi Yehuda says the same applies to froth of rice, and Beis Shammai says it is considered a connection for a tevel yom. Beis Hillel says it is not considered a connection. However, Beis Hillel agrees in the case of all of the sources of Tuma, whether light or severe. If one gathered challah portions with the intention of not separating them, if one baked a flat cake on top, another flat cake, and then became stuck together, after they have formed a crust in the oven, froth of water that is now hollow, the second froth of split beans porridge, the froth of old wine, and the froth of oil always, and the froth of lentils porridge. The Rev Yehuda says the same applies to froth of grass peat porridge. They are tamei in regard to tevel yom, and it is needless to say in regard to all the sources of tuma. A nail-shaped protrusion on the back of the loaf, a small clump of salt, or a burnt crust that is less than a finger breadth. Yoshi says whatever is eaten together with the loaf are tamei in regard to tevel yom, and it is needless to say in regard to all of the sources of tuma.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Tomorrow.
Okay, Zion Gimel. Concerning both altar consecrations and temple upkeep consecrations, we cannot change them from one sanctity to another. However, we may consecrate them with the consecration of appraisal, and we may make them the object of a Karen vow. And if they died, they must be buried. Reb Shimon says, with regard to animals consecrated for the upkeep of the temple, if they died, they may be redeemed. And these are the things that are buried. If a consecrated animal aborted a fetus, the aborted fetus is buried. If it is discharged after an afterbirth, the afterbirth is buried. And so is the ox that is stoned and the decapitated calf, and the birds of a mitzvah, and the hair of a nazir, and the firstborn donkey. And meat with milk, and coolant animals that were slaughtered on the temple courtyard. Reb Shimon says coolant animals that were slaughtered on the temple courtyard must be burned, and so too a chaya that was slaughtered in the temple courtyard. And these are the things that are burned. Chametz on Pesach is burned, and so is truma that is tamei, and fruits of ola, and kalayim of the vineyard. That which is usual to burn is burned, and that which is usual to bury is buried. And the kohana may kindle a fire with bread or with oil of truma.
I remember we just learned we learned in Pesachim that there was a machlokes tanaim about whether it's only Rabbi Yehuda says that you have to burn chametz on Pesach.
Right.
The Chachamim say you can also crumble it and throw it into the wind or into the sea, right? And that's also good, right? So this Mishnah over here is going like Rabbi Yehuda that chametz has to be burned.
Yeah.
Okay. Next. Bava Kama Gimel.
We have one more to go here.
No, I don't think so.
I meant we have one more to go to finish the sector. What are we going after Tamura?
After Tamura, we are on to Krisos.
Krisos, okay. Gimel. If one puts out his straw or his stubble into a public domain to become fertilizer, and someone else is injured by it, he is liable for the injury, and whoever seizes it first acquires it. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says all who litter the public domain and cause damage are liable to pay, and whoever seizes them first acquires them. If one turns over dung in a public domain and someone else is injured by it, he is liable for his injury. Two potters were walking one after the other, and the first one stumbled and fell, and the second one stumbled over the first one. The first one is liable for the injuries of the second one. If one came with his jug and another came with his beam, and this one's jug broke on that one's beam, he is exempt, since this one has the right to walk and that one has the right to walk. The owner of the beam was first and the owner of the jug second, and the jug broke on the beam. The owner of the beam is exempt, but if the owner of the beam stopped, he is liable. If, however, he said to the owner of the jug, stop, he is exempt. If the owner of the jug was first and the owner of the beam second, and the jug broke on the beam, he is liable. But if the owner of the jug stopped, he is exempt. If, however, he said to the owner of the beam, stop, he's liable. And the same applies if one comes with his candle and this one with his flax.
Right. So, in other words, when they're walking in close proximity, they have to kind of signal. They're expected to keep moving, and if somebody wants to stop, then they have to veer off to the side. So,
right.
Okay. All right.
What time did you finish today, davening?
7:30.
7:00. Okay. 7:30. Wow. What time did you start? What time did you start today?
6:40.